Imagine living in a 1,200 square foot apartment. Now, imagine sharing it with 9 other people. Now imagine that your apartment is just one unit in a 14-story building, and every single unit is just as full as yours. Now imagine hundreds of those buildings crammed together so tightly they fuse into a single structure, packed into a space the size of 4 football fields. This was the most densely populated place that has ever existed on Earth. For almost half a century, there was a place in Hong Kong where no government had authority, where buildings rose 14 stories without a single architect, where sunlight never reached the ground. They called it Hak Nam, the city of darkness. To understand how a place like this could exist, you have to go back to 1842 and a fight over drugs. After losing the First Opium War, China was forced to hand Hong Kong Island to the British. But across Kowloon Bay, on a rocky slope overlooking the new British colony, the Chinese kept a small military garrison, a walled fort roughly 700 feet long and 400 feet wide, built to keep an eye on the enemy. China lost again in 1860 and again in 1868, when the British demanded a 99-year lease on the surrounding new territories. But in the fine print of that treaty, China insisted on one thing: that tiny walled fort, just 2.6 hectares of land, would remain under Chinese control. And then nobody showed up to run it. The Chinese magistrate died. He was never replaced. The British tried to take the fort by force in 1899, but after diplomatic protests from Beijing, they backed off. And so this tiny rectangle of land, surrounded on all sides by one of the most tightly governed colonies on Earth, became a place that belonged to no one. For decades, almost nothing happened. The fort crumbled. A few hundred people drifted in and out, and then came World War II. When Japan surrendered in 1945, a flood of refugees from the Chinese Civil War poured into Hong Kong. Many of them ended up in the only place where nobody would ask questions and nobody would check papers. By 1947, 2,000 squatters had crammed inside the old fort walls. The British attempted a raid to clear them out. It sparked a riot. The colonial government backed down and essentially decided to pretend the place didn't exist. That decision created one of the strangest places in human history. With no building codes, no inspections, no architects, and no zoning laws, residents simply built. They built rooms on top of rooms. They leaned buildings against each other for structural support. They ran their own water pipes, strung their own electrical wiring, and carved their own staircases through the concrete. By the late 1970s, the walled city had reached its maximum height, 14 stories, because anything taller would have been clipped by passenger jets landing at nearby Kai Tak Airport. Pilots could almost see into the apartments. For New York City to reach that density, every man, woman, and child living in the state of Texas would have to move to Manhattan. Between 80 and 90% of the walled city had no natural light. The alleys were so narrow, some just 3 feet wide, that residents carried umbrellas indoors. Not for rain, for the constant dripping from 1,000 makeshift pipes overhead. The entire city had one postman. His name was Lam Po Chun. He delivered mail inside the walled city from 1979 to 1989, a decade navigating 350 buildings, 8,500 premises, and over 33,000 residents. There were only 2 elevators in the entire city, so Lam climbed. He climbed dark stairwells 12 stories up, crossed gangways and rusting ladders between rooftops, then dropped back down into the darkness of the next building. He wore a hat, not for the sun, which never reached him, but to protect against the relentless dripping. He once got an electric shock dropping a letter into a mailbox because a live wire was touching it. He said the rats inside the walled city were the size of cats. It wasn't just darkness and dripping pipes, it was an economy. Hundreds of factories operated inside, tiny operations run by entire families, producing everything from fish balls to plastic doll parts to golf balls. And here's the detail that should stop you cold. At its peak, 80% of Hong Kong's fishball supply was produced inside the walled city. The dumplings in Hong Kong's finest restaurants, the fishballs from the city's best street stalls, made here, in the dark, in a place the government pretended didn't exist, exported to the rest of Hong Kong and sometimes beyond, produced in factories that no health inspector ever set foot in. And then there were the dentists. Because Hong Kong law had no jurisdiction here, dentists from mainland China, fully trained but unable to practice legally in the colony, set up shop inside the walled city. Over 150 dental clinics lined a single alley that residents called Dentist Street. They were unlicensed, unregulated, and, according to most residents, actually quite good. They were also cheap, and so people from all across Hong Kong would enter the walled city for one reason: affordable dental work. And then you climbed the roof and everything changed. The rooftop was the walled city's lungs. After 12 floors of darkness, dripping pipes, and fluorescent buzz, you emerged into open sky. Children flew kites between the television antennas, families tended tiny rooftop gardens, pigeon racers held competitions that drew spectators from across the neighborhood. Kids did their homework up here. Some of them leapt between buildings for fun. And every few minutes, a passenger jet would descend so close overhead that the laundry would snap in the engine wash. The children barely flinched. They'd grown up with it. It was the sound of home. Below the rooftops, in the darkest corridors, the triads had operated opium dens, brothels, and gambling houses for decades. 5 gangs, the 14K, Sun Yi-on, Wu Xing-wo, King Yi, and Tai Ho Choi, carved the city into territories. But in the late 1970s, after 3,500 coordinated police raids, the gang's grip began to loosen. And by 1983, police declared the crime rate under control. What remained, once you stripped away the myth of the lawless slum, was a community. Neighbors took turns conserving electricity so the water pumps could run for everyone. Volunteer groups organized garbage collection and fire response. Grandmothers watched each other's children while parents worked in the factories below. Former residents, interviewed decades later, were asked what they missed most about the walled city. Most of them said the same thing: the friendships. On the morning of January 14, 1987, while residents were going about their daily routines, the news arrived. The walled city would be demolished. 400 government officials descended on the neighborhood. They erected cordons around the alleys. They knocked on every door. They surveyed every household. The government offered 2.7 billion Hong Kong dollars in compensation, roughly 350 million US, to relocate 33,000 residents and thousands of businesses. Many accepted, many didn't. The eviction process took 6 years. Some residents were forcibly removed between 1991 and 1992. The last holdouts, people who had spent their entire lives inside the walled city, who had built their homes with their own hands, who had raised their children in 250 square foot apartments 14 stories above the ground, were removed in early 1993. Demolition began in March 1993. It took over a year. When the dust settled, the most densely populated place in human history, a structure that had been alive, humming, dripping, cooking, arguing, sleeping, and dreaming for almost half a century, was gone. Today, if you visit the spot where the walled city stood, you'll find a park, pagodas and ponds, stone paths lined with bamboo, the restored yamen, the old Chinese administrative building that sat at the heart of the city for over a century, now houses a photo exhibition. And On a table near the entrance, there's a bronze model, a tiny replica of the impossible structure that once stood here. Visitors bend down and squint at it, trying to see inside. They can't, of course. Nobody ever could, not from the outside. The Kowloon walled city was a glitch in history, an accident of treaties and neglect that created a place where 33,000 people built a world without permission, without architects, without laws, and somehow without falling apart. It was filthy, it was dark, it was dangerous in ways that are hard to exaggerate and beautiful in ways that are harder to explain. And when they tore it down, the thing that surprised everyone, the journalists, the officials, the urban planners, was that the people who lived there didn't want to leave. Not because the conditions were good, but because the community was irreplaceable.